Now, we've spoken previously on this show about the upcoming visit by Donald Trump to the UK. Now, we know he'll meet with the King, but apparently there are calls to prevent Donald Trump from addressing Parliament. What's the story here?
Yeah, so this has been led by a few members of the Labour Party. We have a Labour peer in the House of Lords who said that it would be inappropriate for Donald Trump to give a speech to Parliament, given his, in his opinion, wayward views on democracy. We also have another Labour MP that's echoing the same calls. And there actually, surprisingly, has been some sort of cross-partisan agreement between the Labour and the Conservative Party. However, this is unlikely to happen. The fact that, Donald Trump has been extended a second state visit, which has never happened before, usually in a US president's second term, they just invite to have tea and lunch with the reigning monarch of Britain. He's clearly making history, and I think to set the precedent that actually he cannot give a speech in Parliament because of his views would be quite strange, considering Barack Obama did this when he was president back in 2011. So really, they have no leg to stand on. We have to remember that this is the person that the American public voted for, and sometimes you have to put your personal feelings aside for the sake of diplomacy. The adults in the room will understand it, but unfortunately, the politicians in both houses of Parliament that feel the need to be impudent still don't. I suspect, Keir Starmer, who's really been walking a very tightrope with relations, not just with Donald Trump, but with the EU, is likely to basically ignore these calls because it seems quite unnecessary. And this is probably not the time to poke the Donald when he's slapping tariffs on countries left, right, and centre.
No, and the thing about democracy is that sometimes it means your team doesn't win, but we've all got to still get on with the job, and that diplomacy, particularly between the US and the UK, remains very important. Now, briefly onto the Sussexes, and we understand they attended an open memorial in honour of children who have lost their lives to cyberbullying. Now, Harry made some interesting comments yet again in relation to that, oppressive and adverse nature of social media. Is their attendance at this event part of their broader advocacy on this issue?
Yeah, so they're trying to sort of rebrand in various ways. You have Meghan making jam, you have Harry trying to find his place and trying to keep up his charitable activities. But really, the couple's ideal sort of position would be the sort of philanthropic jet-setting couple that goes around saying, you cannot bring darkness out of darkness, which I kid you not, Meghan Markle actually said this during her speech at this event. And so this is one of those things that they seem to have championed, but it really kind of falls on deaf ears because, one, this is a couple that an engine of their wealth and their fortune and their celebrity has come from not just the traditional media and the traditional press, which they seem to revile, but also social media. Now, they're talking about in terms of children and trying to help guide parents and all of that. But again, when you tarnish your own personal brand in the way that they have, a lot of the things that they say fall on deaf ears. They don't seem to be leaders on anything because these are people that are happy to use social media, to use the engine of the internet and the press to get their word out there, to tell their side of the story with the royal family. But somehow they draw a line when it comes to their children. It really does send sort of mixed messages, but you can tell that they're really trying to break through with things that they think is important. And unfortunately, they don't have the engine of the royal family that they had to lend them some credibility. It just seems like two very rich people mouthing off and trying to plug themselves into things that are relevant, even though this is an important cause. And even though trying to regulate social media and to prevent harm to children is something that's very important and every single parent will certainly be behind. But when it's coming from people like Harry and Meghan, it starts to fall on deaf ears, unfortunately.
And following on from that, I suppose, an interesting piece in the Daily Mail, and this is after Meghan's appearance at the Time 100 event, suggesting that Harry has become the spare in his own marriage. Now, there's a pretty brutal thing to say. What are your thoughts? And we know that Meghan, say, for example, has told people in and around Montecito that, Harry struggled to make friends in the area. So how does that all fit?
Well, obviously, no one knows the intimate workings of the Sussexes marriage and how they relate to each other. I have this weird theory that they're trauma bonded to each other, particularly Harry to Meghan, in the sense that they've just left such a wave of controversy in their departure from the royal family that they really cannot separate. They are a package deal, whether anyone likes it or not, and it probably should stay that way, particularly for the sake of their children. However, it's clear that Harry seems to be the kind of person that's happy to take a backseat to let Meghan shine and not steal her spotlight. We remember that magazine cover where he looked like basically her subdued hairdresser, where he was standing behind her and he kind of crouched down to be level with her, even though we know there's a significant height difference. She's about 5'3", 5'4", and he's certainly over 6 foot or a little bit over that. And we can see now at the latest Times event the way he was sort of walking behind her and retreating and really just letting her have his moment in her Netflix series, her most recent one, her lifestyle one, where he managed to chew through his leash enough to make an appearance on camera. Again, he didn't really say much. He didn't really, stop for an interview or even more than a quick sentence. He's really taking a step back. And whether that's because he's uncomfortable with kind of the vanity of the forward-facing role of being sort of a Hollywood celebrity, or whether he's just not found his place and he's really happy to sort of ride Meghan's coattails while he kind of does his own thing, is interesting. I mean, he's not someone that's new to the spotlight. He is a prince, and he has been a prince for most of his life. However, this kind of celebrity and fame, I can see how it's foreign to him and how vacuous and shallow it is. And so he's kind of happy to let Meghan, who's more well known and who's more familiar with that industry and that world, to take the lead.